Hello, and welcome to our first episode of Death is Life. Thank you all for joining me. I'm really excited to get this off the ground. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I've been teaching in veterinary medicine and veterinary pathology training for a handful of years now. And yeah, this is just a project I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. For our first episode, I thought I would talk a little bit about myself, just kind of introduce myself, give a little bit of my background, and maybe some very light career advice for anyone who's thinking about pathology as a career, considering that as a veterinary specialty. So you might have noticed the title by now, My Life as a Necromancer, and you may be asking yourself, what does necromancy have to do with pathology, with veterinary medicine, with anything we're talking about today? Well, necromancy is the practice of communicating with the dead, in some cases to predict the future, in other cases to divine the past, to find some long-lost, buried ancestral treasure. Whatever it is, it has to do with death and the dead and communication. So again, you may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with pathology? I recognize necro, it's the same root word as necropsy, maybe they're related, not sure. Well, it might surprise some of you, but I actually communicate with the dead daily in my work as a pathologist. One of the key tools that I use as an anatomic pathologist is an autopsy, also called a necropsy when it's performed on an animal. But an autopsy is basically just an examination of a dead body, usually to determine either the cause of death or the extent of disease, or to answer some other question. But basically, you're given a dead body and you are asked to not communicate with it in a literal sense, but you're definitely receiving information from the dead body. You're interpreting and kind of divining, into the future, into the past. And so this definition of necropsy, a postmortem exam on a dead body to discover the cause of death, the extent of disease, is very much in line with what I think of as the practice of necromancy. I grew up playing, D&D and all these, nerdy video games and other things where a necromancer is, kind of evil, but they're also the class I was oddly drawn to because you always got like a little skeleton pet to do your bidding. So I unfortunately do not yet have a skeleton pet. I don't think you get that until you become a full professor. Right now I'm just an assistant professor, but someday I will get my necromancer's skeleton. Anyway, predicting the future. Well, all right, pathologists communicate with the dead, but they don't really predict the future. The animal's dead. The thing has already happened. You're really more dealing with the past, right? Well, we do deal with the past, but we also use the information we get from these dead animals to predict the future. So these are some of the questions I get routinely in my job as a working veterinary pathologist, where I'm being asked to predict the future. Things like, my animal is sick. Is there a risk of my child getting sick from my sick cat? My cat brought home a bat. That's a common one that we get. Could my cat have rabies? Could I have rabies? Could I have something worse from a bat? We talk about all these new diseases coming out of bat species. Is this something that's infectious to me? What about when we create a new drug intended for human use? How are we going to know if that's safe to put in a human? Does it have any toxicity common to multiple species? That's probably not going to be a safe drug for human use. Is it efficacious? Does the drug work? Can we put it in a mouse and does it kill a tumor in a mouse? Is it even going to be effective if we use it in a human? We can also predict the future of the environment. This is a really big one right now. Lots of our environmental sentinel species, these are species that are really sensitive to the status of the environment because of their biology. Things like frogs, corals, bees, other pollinators. We can actually predict the future of the health of our environment and the current health of our environment by looking at the health of some of these populations, which, spoiler, frogs, corals, bees, none of those guys are doing great right now. So that's an important clue that our environment is in some peril. What about the pathogenesis of disease? Pathogenesis is, the full course of disease from the start to the end. From, how do we go from a healthy animal all the way to dead? So if we catch this animal somewhere, early in disease, what's the pathogenesis? What does the future look like for this animal after they've been diagnosed with this disease? What does disease usually look like? How does it progress? Kind of similar to that, what's the prognosis? How long does my animal have? It's been diagnosed with this cancer. Well, what do we know about that cancer in this animal? Can we predict the future just for this individual? What about emerging disease discovery? I mentioned bats a little while ago. We think of these key species, these key areas of the world where there's emerging diseases. Can we predict the next emerging disease? A lot of people arguably predicted SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus, coming out of a specific region of the world. Some of these are considered almost inevitable when you look at the status of, the environment and the animals in the environment. There's a great book on this subject. It's called Spillover, actually, that details the history of all these emerging diseases and how something like COVID was really pretty predictable. And then just to end on a fun one, can I eat this? Sometimes I get sent steaks or meat from a butcher, and they want to know, is there some pathology or disease in the meat? But really, I do a lot to predict the future. It's not just the past. Even though the animal is dead, there's a lot we can learn from this body that is useful information moving forward. So my average day, I mentioned I am currently an assistant professor of anatomic pathology. I work at a combined veterinary hospital. So it's primarily an academic setting, but we're also combined with a state veterinary diagnostic lab. So we also do all of the disease surveillance and diagnostic work for the state that we're in. And this is my day. So one of the reasons I decided to become a pathologist is I knew that my average day would not really exist. No day is average for me. Every day is different. Every species is different. One day I'm dealing with birds and fish, and the next day I'm dealing with, horses and cows. The next day I'm doing research on a naked guinea pig, hairless guinea pig. They're also called skinny pigs. The next day I'm, opening an egg-bound snake with a student. So really what I love about pathology is I get to work with all species. I get to work across all realms, diagnostic work. I love to teach. I love mentoring students. I love doing research and engaging that curious side of my brain. So it's a really have your cake and eat it too kind of profession where you just kind of get to do everything. And that's one of the things I really love about it. So I mentioned I'm a big proponent of research. What that means for me and what that looks like is I'm not a PI. I don't have my own lab. I don't have any grad students. What I do is a lot of collaborative research. So what that means is that I work with PIs and I work with grad students and postdocs, and I help them with their model, their interpretation, their pathology. So this is just a short list of some of the things I've done in the last couple of years. During grad school, I worked a lot on animal models of tuberculosis. A lot of what I do as a comparative pathologist is very much focused on animal models of human disease. And what can we learn from disease in animals that we can then go on and apply to humans and human health. So I also do a lot of, anti-tumor therapy, novel therapeutics for infectious disease, novel gene delivery systems. I do quite a bit of work with mice. I also do a little bit of zebrafish. But again, you can see here the species list is diverse. We even have some projects in sea lions here. So again, that's kind of the benefit of collaborative research. You're not tied down to one project. You can kind of dabble in all of these other projects that belong to other people. The other nice thing is I don't have to rely on my own primary funding. This is research that's already been funded through these other labs, and then they pay me as a collaborator. So that's nice. All right, so some of you may be hearing this and thinking, gee, well, that sounds like a pretty cool career. I bet the hours are good because everything's dead. There's no emergencies. Sounds like the job for me. I'm ADHD. I don't want to settle on one species. They're telling me I need to pick large animal, small animal, and I'm just not into it. Pathology might be for you. So how did I get here? This is my CV. It's only one way of many to get here. So there isn't really a classic path. There are many ways to get here. My bachelor's degree was in biology and microbiology. I then took a brief career detour and worked a little bit in veterinary microbiology. So there will definitely be some bug lectures on this channel for sure. During this time, I worked at a state medical diagnostic lab, similar to where I am now. And this was really my first taste of pathology. I remember this first pathology lab where I worked had a pass-through fridge that went from the hallway into the necropsy gallery, and it was glass windowed on both sides. And so you could be walking down the hallway and just peek into the necropsy gallery and see all the crazy stuff going on in there. I remember I peeked in once and saw an elephant suspended from the ceiling and a large crane, and I lost my young mind. And I just looking through that window so many times, I just thought, I can't believe that's a job. I want to do that. That looks so cool. And then from that, I decided, all right, I think pathology is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure for that, I want to do a veterinary degree. So then I went and got my doctor of veterinary medicine from the Ohio State University. And this was really where I got my first taste of research. So a lot of universities, schools of veterinary medicine offer these summer research programs for veterinary students. And I was lucky enough to be accepted to two very, very excellent summer research programs that just gave me a really great taste of research and really, pardon the pun, infected me with that desire to explore deeper into science and really ask the deeper questions. And so it was this experience along with exposure to my pathology courses in my veterinary school work that I really decided that I wanted to go on and specialize and pursue not just a residency in anatomic pathology, but also a PhD. So there's many ways to do this. There's a lot of straight residencies. There's combined. You can do these things separately. We could probably do a whole video just on types of residency programs and applying to residency. There's a lot of information there. I chose what I thought was best for me. I was coming from kind of a non-traditional background where I was a little bit older, and I didn't really trust myself to do one degree after the other because I was like, I'm already getting a little bit tired of school. So what I decided to do is just do them together to combine programs. So straight residency is usually about 3 years. PhD is 4, 5, 6, depends on your program. Most combined programs get you through in about 5 or 6. And I was at Johns Hopkins, so my focus in residency was very much on laboratory animal pathology, aquatic and exotic pathology. We did a lot of work for the National Aquarium that's there in Baltimore, and also the Baltimore Zoo, and then a little bit of companion animal pathology. My PhD was in molecular medicine, and I studied animal models of human disease, again, primarily mycobacterial infection, and the pathology of tuberculosis and other mycobacterial diseases. So again, there's lots of different pathways. This is the one I took. This is the one that worked for me. As you can see, it's very research heavy. You don't need to be invested in research to go into pathology. There are plenty of careers out there that don't need a PhD. So many different potential career paths. Academia, what they call the triple threat, is this kind of what I'm doing, where you're doing everything at once. You're doing diagnostics and research and teaching. You could also, go hardcore into research and become a PI and kind of do less of the diagnostic work. There are lots of jobs in the industry for pathologists, both with CROs such as Charles River and Zoetis and others, as well as a lot of biotech pharma companies and commercial diagnostics such as IDEX and Antech. Lots of government jobs, especially in the research sector, NIH, NIAID, those kind of institutes. And then private practice. You can do private consulting. There are a lot of veterinary specialty labs. CoPLOW is the lab for ocular pathology. EPL is environmental pathology. So there's really a lot of things you can do. It's not necessary to have a PhD, but for a lot of these careers, a PhD or a master's degree at least is going to be highly desirable, especially for the research-heavy positions. So for becoming a PI, definitely you're going to need a PhD. For contract research org, you're going to be doing lots of toxicologic pathology. Again, a PhD is going to be highly desirable, and depending on the hiring atmosphere and the organization, it may be a requirement. Commercial diagnostics is the one area that definitely doesn't require a PhD. So IDEX, Antech, similar labs, you can go in with just a straight residency, and it's basically just diagnostic work with no research component. All right, that concludes our first episode. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for watching and showing up. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and we will try to address it either in the comments or in a future video. I would love if you have ideas or suggestions for a future video. Please leave that in the comments too. I'm just now building up content, and I would love to hear from you guys. What's relevant? What's important? What big questions do you have that I could deal with in, I don't know, a 10 to 15 minute lecture? Hit me up. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.